Black Star Project. Welcome to the first in our leadership series. It's a leadership forum. There are some very dynamic, practical, achievable ideas in the African American community. Many times they don't get out. We don't share them. At this time,
That's right.
we would like to inaugurate the leadership series. We've got different leaders from the community who will be speaking in this leadership forum for 1 hour. 30 minutes of presentation, 30 minutes of Q&A. And if there's a nugget, if there is something that is valuable, if people connect, then we can use this space to regather, to come back another day and to continue. But for today, it is an hour of power.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Today, the first speaker in this series is a gentleman who most of you either know or know of, one of the leading reparations enforcers in the United States, in the world actually, a gentleman who has fought almost on every continent for the idea of reparations for African people. And he would like to share his ideas with you, great African ideas. I give you Mr. Cam Howard.
Right on.
Thank everyone who came out and here on time. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm truly honored to be kicking off the Black Star Project's Our Power Leadership Forum. Everything that Phil does is fantastic and fabulous, and just to be a part of that,
That's right.
it's an honor, truly an honor. So if this is the Our Power Leadership Forum, I guess I should first start out by speaking a little bit about power and leadership. And I'm a student of power, a student of Black Power.
Go ahead.
In fact, Amos Wilson has wrote the definitive book on Black Power. There's not been a thrust for Black Power since the Black Power movement in this country. You can go anywhere and you get a group of Black people to get to talking about the progress of the people, and none of them mention power anytime during the conversation. So we had to wonder, what are they truly there trying to do? So when brothers talk about the hour of power, I mean, it's really a significant title to this forum. And so what is power? Well, Dr. Amos Wilson says that there are two types of power. There's the power to do and the power over. Power is exercised in you being able to do what you want to do, or you being able to get other people to do what you want to do, have power over them. And in the past, we've had a lot of power over us. And then Dr. Wilson talks about the four forms of power. The first form of power is force. You know, we were brought here by force. We know a little bit about the power of force. We were brought here by force. We were robbed of our labor by force. We were robbed of our children by force. We were robbed of our African minds by force.
That's right.
The second form of power is coercion. Coercion is the use of power. I'm going to just read that for you. But coercion is the threatened use of power. You don't even have to use it. You have to just threaten it that you're going to use it. Threaten the use of force, I should say. You don't even have to have the force.
That's right.
The power to make anyone do anything. But if they believe you have the power, then you can curse them. The instrumental use of force, or the threatened use of force by the power holder to obtain the compliance of another, is often referred to as coercion. Again, it's the threatened use. It doesn't have to be the actual physical use of force, but the threatened use of force. The third form of power is influence. I And we have to become familiar with each of these forms of power as we deal with different elements in our community. Influence occurs when a person acts in compliance with the wishes or directions or suggestions of another based on his sheer positive regard for love, admiration of the other, or based on the desire to please or serve the other because of others' personal significance to him. So influence occurs out of when the people like you and think that you have their best interests at heart, or think that you're the expert. And this type of power we use with our children. We attempt to influence our children, letting them know that we have their best interests at heart. And so in the context of social power, when a people can get you to believe that they have your best interests at heart, they're able to influence you to get you to do what they want them to do, or what gets you to do exactly what they want them to do. So influence is a form of power. And the fourth form of power is manipulation. Manipulation occurs, it involves the attempt by the manipulator to elicit certain desired responses from his subject while concealing his efforts to do so. They're getting the subject to behave in certain desired ways outside of the subject's knowledge and awareness. Now you can manipulate a whole community by controlling the construct of that community.
The media, yes.
And the people begin to act thinking that they're acting on their own free will, but they've been manipulated. If you drop narcotics in the community, take about all the legitimate ways of employment, what's going to happen in that community?
They're gonna use
Manipulation.
And put guns in that community, what's going to happen?
Chaos.
They're going to kill one another. But the people are thinking they're making their own decisions to kill each other. But this is the act of manipulation.
That's right.
The real power holder is concealed in his hand. Right? And so, after Dr. Wilson talks about the basis of the forms of power, he then talks about the basis of power. How do you build a power base? And what is power based on? And there are several bases of power. One is property. Who was the first voters in America?
white males.
Almost. That's half the
Owning
answer.
property.
Huh?
Owning property, white
White
males.
male property owners. Not just white men. There were a lot of white men that couldn't vote. But the power was based on them owning property. And property is a base of power. If you own or control a community, you have a power base. If you own or control land, you have a power base because of that. Another base of power is organizations or institutions. When you look at Minister Farrakhan, Mr. Farrakhan has a power base, and that's the Nation of Islam.
That's right.
Right? And he's able to say things and do things that no other black man in this country can do because he has a power base, a strong institutional power base.
So,
Another base of power is networks. You take organizations and you build coalitions or networks of those organizations and coalitions and institutions, and you begin to have more power based on those networks. And the final form of power is ethnic solidarity. Final base of power is ethnic solidarity. That was what Marcus Garvey built. A 6 million member association, organization was on ethnic solidarity, as well as superior organization. And we haven't had that type of solidarity or organization since the 60s power movement, when we were 60s and 70s, when we were building organizations and institutions and networks and things of that order. And with the destruction of those organizations, with the destruction of those institutions, with the destruction of those networks, we see our current reality today. So, one of the things I want to become clear is that we're not going to win reparations or any other victory without building power. That is our goal in the reparations struggle. But let me talk a little about leadership. Leadership in today's leadership, in business and communities, organizations, and causes, all these things have leaders, but there's a term called transformational leadership, which has 4 criteria. One, the transformational leader creates an inspiring vision of the future. So those of us in the reparations movement, we want to create an inspiring vision of a healed and repaired community based on the resources that we extract from this criminal element that did the injury against our ancestors for over 400 years and continue to do this injury. We can see a healed and whole African people. It's not going to take become overnight or in one generation, but we have the vision of a healed and whole African people, not just here in America, but also globally. Your transformational leader motivates and inspires the people. He manages the delivery of the vision, or she manages the delivery of the vision, and they build teams in order to make sure that the vision is manifested. Now, I'm considered a leader of N'COBRA. In fact, I am a leader of N'COBRA. I'm the national male co-chair. It's a national coalition. It is an organization. It's a coalition of organizations. It is a base from which we struggle and fight for reparations to get redress from the crimes that are committed against our ancestors. So we have a base of power, this coalition, this organization, from which we can wage an effort to build enough power to get the type of redress that we want. So what form of power do we have to use as reparation enforcers? And that's why we use the term enforcement. I totally reject the idea of reparations advocate, a reparations activist. Well, activist is okay, but one who's advocating. Because advocating means you're trying to use influence. And the only way you can influence is if the person likes you. Remember? That's how you use influence. The person has to like you, has to appreciate, has to think that you're an expert, has to think that you have some significant quality about yourself, that they would do what you want them to do. White folks do not like us.
That's right.
We are wasting our time trying to build enough power to influence them. It ain't going to happen if you understand power. So we have to find and build other forms of power. We have to build force.
Yes, sir.
To force them to do what we want them to do, or to use coercion or even manipulation. African people were master manipulators on the plantation. They got white folks to do all types of things that white folks didn't know they were doing. Am I right?
Yes,
We know the history.
That's right.
And so we got to learn how to use manipulation, force, and coercion today. And we have the tools necessary right now at this very time to do so. I want to say that we are winning.
That's right.
We are winning this struggle for reparations. In order to see that we are winning, you have to take a historical view. You can't be looking at what's happening right now where, Congressman Conyers, H.R. 40, Congressman Conyers is no longer there, and who's going to push it, all that. But we got answers for that too. But you have to take a longer view. And I'm not going to take you way back to N'COBRA's beginning 30 years ago, but I want to take you to 2001, the World Conference Against Racism. And it was held in Durban, South Africa in 2001. In 1997 or so, a brother out of New York, international law attorney out of New York, went to Geneva, Switzerland. And there was a brother who was a career diplomat from the African continent, from the Sudan, who had been living in Geneva for over 30-something years and was a career diplomat with the UN. He told the brother, he said, brother, we need a World Conference Against Racism. There hadn't been one since 1978. Let's make it happen. A year later, the United Nations announced that there will be a World Conference Against Racism that will be held in 2001. This was now in 1998, 1999. But it began with the thought of one brother, and then the thought of a well-positioned other brother. So in 2000, there was a preparatory, once they announced there's going to be a world conference, they have preparatory regional conferences around the world. There's 5 regions in the United Nations. There's the GRULAC, which is a group of Latin American Caribbean states. There's a European group. There's a North Atlantic group, which consists of Mexico, America, and Canada. There's the African group, and there's the Asian group. So after they announced that there would be a World Conference Against Racism, the brother from New York, along with other brothers, Canada, a couple of brothers from Canada, they went down to the preparatory conference in Chile of the GRULAC region, the group of Latin American Caribbean states. That's where their regional meeting was held. And they hold these regional meetings in order to draft word